It's the Sports Peninsula podcast. Coming up, the Detroit Lions' 11-game win streak was snapped last Sunday afternoon at Ford Field by the Josh Allen-led Buffalo Bills 48-42. The Lions came into the game knowing it would be an offensive slugfest, but were unable to get out of the gates quickly and ultimately simply couldn't keep pace with the high-powered Bills offense. The Lions still hold the number one seed in the NFC, but there will be no days off going forward with the Vikings and Eagles right behind them. The Lions travel to the Windy City this Sunday to take on the Chicago Bears, who they defeated on Thanksgiving 23-20 in Detroit. We'll look at both of these games and give an update on the injury front next. Now, here is your Sports Peninsula team. Welcome, everybody, to the Sports Peninsula podcast. My name is Dave Brzezinski Drew, and it is Monday, December 16th, and we're talking Lion football. And we have our roundtable, three quarters of our roundtable today. First, we start with Coach Andy Shield, the Marine City Mariners. Coach, how you doing?
Doing well, Drew. A lot better than some. Not sulking my Cheerios like some of these fans around here are. Not me. How are you doing, sir? How are you doing?
I'm in the same boat and mindset as you, Coach. I mean, I'm not digging what's happening in some regards, but exactly. But at the same time, all is certainly not lost, and this is still one of the greatest seasons I've seen as a Lions fan. And I think I'd speak for all of us on that one. But yeah, I'm doing all right. And then we got the Youper Brad Harrison, straight from Marquette University, joining us today. How you doing, Brad?
Hey, Drew. Yeah, just trying to figure it all out, right? You got to keep moving forward. This game's coming on Sunday, so just put in the work. Let's figure it out as we go, because the three of us have been watching our whole lives, and we've got viewers and listeners who've watched longer than us and haven't been around as long as us. And I don't think any of us have seen this, right? They haven't seen this type of situation before. So,
on multiple levels.
Yeah. On multiple levels. Yeah. From 12-2 to the injury situation. It's just something else, but hey, I don't think Dan Campbell's sitting around crying about it either.
No, absolutely not.
We got to play the Bears on Sunday.
You got it. But let's talk about that Buffalo game first. And Lions lose 48-42. They're still 12-2. They're still leading the NFC. Now, they're not the top team in the NFL anymore. It's the Kansas City Chiefs at 13-1. I get it. But this is the Detroit Lions. They're still leading the NFC National Football Conference, and they're still in line to get a bye week in the playoffs. Very, very important. And so let's get into that. Coach, I want to start with you now. Let's talk about the Lions game. I'm of the opinion that, you don't lose games in the first quarter, but the Lions put themselves behind the 8 ball in the first quarter and really put themselves in a tough spot by not getting out of the gates quickly on offense. What are your thoughts on it?
Buffalo won the game out of the gates by getting the 2 stops.
Yeah.
That wound up being the conclusive. That wound up being the conclusive circumstance of the game from an offensive and defensive standpoint. There are a lot of other plays, and when you lose a game by 6 points, and we were losing by 3 scores at times. We were the Buffalo Bills commanded the game. They were the better football team yesterday, far and away, and there's a lot of reasons for that, and some of them are related to the Buffalo Bills. But there are several plays in that game that, 2 of them by special teams. Jake Bates on that field goal, that was rough. His 2 onside kick attempts were brilliant.
Yes.
Perfection. Where was our guy to destroy
Hollins?
Hollins. Where was our guy to light him alive? That's the only thing that went wrong on that one. And honestly, we were a fraction of a second of a reach to get a shot at a Hail Mary to win that football game, because we just about got the creeper kick.
Mm-hmm.
And Jake Bates followed right up in there behind it to try to get it himself. Those were great effort. That was great effort. We lost 48-42 in unbelievable offensive football game. It's reminiscent of an old USFL game from the first era when it was loaded with Hall of Fame football players.
Yeah.
What a brilliant game to have attended. But the Buffalo Bills got the first 2 stops, and that's all they needed to do. They got the extra stop on defense. And that's what it's going to have to be like to beat the Detroit Lions more times than not. I mean, probably moving forward, we are going to have there's going to be more and more pressure on our offense to be able to do what they did yesterday. Having said that, that's one of the better football teams in the NFL that we lost 48-42. And we didn't play very well. We had some critical errors. There's all sorts of things and all sorts of adversity we were working against yesterday. And so, I mean, okay, let's say we're 2 scores down. We're really a 2-score deficit in that game. Yeah, really we were, but we were able to make it 6 and had a shot at an onside kick at the end to get one more stab at it. So a lot of things to unpack here, Brad, a lot of things to unpack here. But first, your thoughts, man. I mean, I know I just kind of went up and down on who it was that we played. But from your perspective, how do you see this loss?
If we were going to lose one, this would be the one to lose. Not that we want to lose any of them. I felt like I'm not going to discredit any player that was on that field or on that roster yesterday. I'm not going to, they gave it all they had. The talent level is just lessened. It's lessened. This isn't the same team we started with. It's not even the same team that played against the Indianapolis Colts. I felt like, who are these guys, right? They're giving it their all. They've got to take the coaching. They have to have the understanding that they're there for a purpose and to make the play. I mean, these are NFL players that have the ability. They have to come together as a unit. I felt like, maybe communication wasn't there on defense the way it should be. It's probably hard to do when you don't know who this guy is lining up next to you, right? These are just the reality of it. So, and the fact of the matter is, wow, Josh Allen, did we just see a kid play football or what? I don't know if I've seen that type of quarterback play that often in this league. I mean, he could do whatever he wanted and did whatever he wanted. And he's going to do that to other teams as well. I mean, if we meet him again, that's going to be a good thing. That's going to be a really good thing when we meet him again. But this work that's going to take place is going to be of Herculean effort in these next few weeks, because there's no room for error. But I do think if we had the guys to get us to 12-1, we have the guys to get us to 13-2. And when I'm saying the guys, I'm talking about Dan Campbell. I'm talking about Aaron Glenn, I'm talking about Ben Johnson. I'm talking about Dave Phipp. I'm talking about that staff that we were
Mark Brunell. I mean,
Mark Brunell, Hank Fraley. I mean, if we loved him 4 weeks ago, why wouldn't we now? And this is where we're going. So I got the Jared Goff Detroit grit hat on here. We'll see, man. This is what you got to dig down now. I mean, it's on. It's not over.
Yeah, no doubt about that. With the Lions, Dan Campbell, we know who Dan Campbell is, and you're either on board or you're not. We as a fan, I can't Monday morning quarterback critiquing his fourth down, his tendency to go for it on fourth down. I'm sorry, I lost for words there. I wasn't happy with the first onside kick, but at that being said, I'm not down on Dan Campbell. I understand why he did it. I do. If Hutch and all of them are back in there, well, he's not even going to bother doing that. And quite frankly, probably doesn't even need to think about doing it at that point. But you're either on board or you're not. if you're going to question going for it on fourth down because a couple of times in the NFC Championship game it didn't work out, well, you loved it in Week 15, you loved it in the wild card game. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, this is the team we got. This is our coaching. This is how they roll, and I'm on board with it. Again, I didn't like that kick, but I understood it. It wasn't like this brain dead, half baked thing that he did. I understand why he did it. And the coach,
were we stopping them at all, Drew?
No.
Were we stopping them at all? We had to do something to help out that defense.
And that's, I want to ask you a question, Coach, on that, based on that. And this is something I was puzzled by, because up until this point, from the Cardinals game, which I believe was Week 3, all the way up to yesterday, last Sunday, the Lions were bringing, well, actually, I shouldn't say that. Since the Hutchinson injury against Dallas, they have been bringing 5 or 6 guys pretty consistently, containing the pocket and bringing pressure. Why did they decide, for the most part in this game, to only rush 4 and at times only 3?
Spy.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, one, I mean, if we were making a direct comparison, and I don't think you are, but if you're making a direct comparison between the Arizona Cardinals game and the Buffalo Bills game, I would say that one of those quarterbacks was Kyler Murray and the other was Josh Allen.
They did against Jordan Love too, though.
And I'm sorry, Kyler. I mean, it's just, the other guy is just a little different to deal with. And it's just like there's a couple in this league that really kind of play this way, or a few. And, you know, that when he's on his A game, it's Lamar Jackson, obviously Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen. They can play in his heyday, and he was almost kind of the originator, I guess the modern day originator of it, and that would be Aaron Rodgers. You know, the Steve Young, John Elway method of playing chicken with the line of scrimmage. It's the best way I can describe it. They play chicken with the line of scrimmage. They will buy space. They're all coming out of the gun and taking a shotgun snap the majority of the time, right? Well, then they'll drift and get some more depth even yet, so they can find ways to attack the line of scrimmage and break, contain, and create their own passing windows. That's what these guys do. They're preeminent at it, and that would be the thing. I don't think we you know, I'm not going to go after Coach Glenn, because I mean, there in so many ways it's been you know, an absolute modern marvel what he's been able to do with different personnel. Yes. and having some really good defensive output. This time, though, it was the Buffalo Bills, who are coming off of a game in which they lost 44-42 at SoFi Stadium. We know this team is hell on wheels scoring points. They've been really, really, really good the last, 5 years. They just cannot defeat the Kansas City Chiefs. They just can't do it when it counts. They just can't do it, and or haven't been able to do it thus far. And we're seeing another really good recycle and punch from the Buffalo Bills. They look fantastic. They're really, really good.
Yeah, they did.
And you know, so getting back to it, I don't think we had the best scheme on defense yesterday, fellas. I don't think spying Josh Allen with the talent that we have out there, the ability, we have to come after him and make him lose track of that line of scrimmage, that he has to get rid of that football, or they have to audible into a run play or something really, really safe. That's what we need to do. We have to dictate what he does. If we allow him to play chicken with the line of scrimmage and create his own passing windows with now the defensive depth that we have out there, that's we would have to be picture perfect on offense to be able to win a game that way. And that's kind of what the story was yesterday, guys. At least from this guy's perspective, that's what the story was for yesterday, is that we put it on the offense's back, and it damn near worked. The Buffalo Bills were able to get a couple of stops.
Yeah, no doubt. And Coach, I think you're spot on with that. And Brad, I want to ask you, let's go to the other side of the ball. Now, the Lions scored 42 points, but they were down 14-0 in the first quarter. But what I want to ask you, though, and Coach, you said it, the Buffalo Bills played a great football game. I think this was the first game the Lions offensive line, Brad, really struggled. They didn't play well. They really did have a hard time. And I know Buffalo's got a nice defense. Epinesa, Russo, Von Miller, they can bring it, and they did. Talk about that.
Hey, you missed that Oliver in there.
Yeah, I know.
And you missed. How many of us were going back to the T.J. Hawkinson draft? I mean, I'm not smart enough sometimes to say who you should have taken, but I think that year I was at Oliver because he was a menace. I mean, you don't see Frank Ragnow getting those.
He punished him.
Penalties. Yeah,
that was a study for me. I was watching that matchup, very much when he aligned in at the nose, either shaded or over Ragnow. I didn't like what I saw.
Yeah,
it was rough.
That was a rough watch.
It was rough.
And I still want Frank Ragnow as my center. Let's not get it twisted.
Absolutely, 100%.
He's not the problem.
But I mean, I think these guys are withered
for sure.
And in the modern day NFL, they're getting longer of tooth.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
they are. They're all 5+ year football players, with the exception of Penei Sewell.
That's a good point.
That's why this year is so important. That's why this is such an important time.
It is.
Ragnow's still here, and Decker's still here, and Glasgow's still here, and and they hadn't been able to run block. I don't feel like the way these last few weeks the running game has been off. And they just haven't busted those holes. And once again, I'm going to give the Bills a lot of credit. I'm not going to sit here and think we got to tear this thing down to build it back up to beat the Chicago Bears on Sunday. But
it's too late for that anyway.
What's that?
It's too late for that anyway.
Yeah, that's true, right? Yeah, way too late. We're going with the one what I say, dance with the one that brought you, and I'm glad we are. But I would say on the offensive side of the ball, those 42 points, the 5 touchdowns. I mean, that was some stat Padford stuff going on in that fourth quarter. I was glad he was completing the passes, and crazy to think you're losing games when you threw 5 touchdowns and you've won a game where you threw 5 interceptions. But that's what happened this year so far.
Yeah.
And, that's not crazy.
That's crazy.
It's the first time a quarterback's thrown for over 400 yards and 5 touchdowns, no interceptions, and lost. And then to your point, the Lions win a game in Houston and Goff threw 5 interceptions. But
and he was giving it to like Goff. I mean, out of all the players on it, like, all right, Jared, you did well. Good game. I'm losing Montgomery right now. Like we all heard about that this morning. I'm certain, right? So
yeah.
Man, here's another next man up. But I mean, I'm glad we're next man up with Gibbs in the backfield, and maybe we get to see Vaki a little bit with Kurt Reynolds, right?
Oh, we will. And gentlemen, I'm going to read off a list, and it's a distinguished list. But oh my goodness, get a drink, enjoy yourselves because it's a long one. Aiden Hutchinson, Aleem McNeil, John Kaminsky, Marcus Davenport, all out. Hutch may be back for the Super Bowl. McNeil's out for the year. Kaminsky might be back for the playoffs. That would be a nice addition. Davenport's done for the year. Let's go to the second level, linebackers. Derek Barnes, he's out for the year. Anzalone will be back for the playoffs. That's a good thing. Rodrigo's out for the year. Jalen Reeves-Maybin, I don't know. I don't know if he'll be back. I'd hope he'd be back for the playoffs. I'm not sure. You don't hear much. We're not hearing a lot about his injury right now. And by the way, let's go to the secondary. And it's Rakestraw still out with a hamstring. He really hasn't played much this year. I don't know when he'll be available. You would hope soon. Melifonwu hasn't played all year. I'm not optimistic he'll be back this year. But the big one, and Coach, you've touched on this all year, how important Carlton Davis has been to this Lions team. They missed him when he was out. and they're going to miss him again because it looks like he's going to be out possibly as long as 6 weeks, which would be around the NFC Championship time. And then, Brad, you mentioned on the offense, Decker's been out. We've had injuries there, but Montgomery's done for the year with the MCL. Coach, I texted earlier, you guys. I said, have you guys ever seen a list like this on a team? It's playing this well. And no, I haven't. But Coach, your thoughts on these injuries?
I mean, what has been remarkable has been the resilience of the team and the team response, which is truly a testament to the culture and to the type of player that the Lions have cultivated. They're a buy-in group, and they've got players on that roster that can do the things that they're asked of them. And it's just so well put together and so well manufactured. From that standpoint, and it has to be, whether it's Bo playing, whether it's been Maurice Alexander, whether it's been Jonah Williams, we can shred him all we want, because he's not performed at the at a heroine's clip, but Vildor is at least a guy that can go out there and line up and give us an effort.
Mm-hmm.
And more times than not, we can win with it. Now, we can't make a living with him as our corner. And we may have to, guys. We may have to. Because look there's just who's left. Dorsey, done for the year.
Yeah, I didn't even mention
Terrible,
him.
Horrific injury.
Yep.
Godspeed to him. So that was a terrible injury. We've lost Carlton Davis, who I think is by so many has been one of the unsung heroes of this team. He's just been so steady and a great model of grit and toughness and success and winning. So it's huge. Yeah, Ennis Rakestraw. I'm not quite sure. He's not been much of a contributor this year. He has played a couple of times, but it's not been for much at all. It's all hands on deck in regards to our secondary. Brian Branch may have to go out and play some corner. We might just have to put Jamal Adams back at safety.
Well, I was going to suggest something. Coach, I wanted to see what you guys thought about this, because the first, the knee-jerk response is you plug Vildor into the corner and you roll. My thought was, can Robertson move to the outside and put Branch back at the nickel and put Brandon Joseph with Kirby Joseph back at safety? I kind of like that better than rolling with Vildor. Again, I'm not trying to disrespect the guy, but I'm just trying to put the best team out there. And I
think you're on to something, Drew. I think you're on to something. Brad,
I haven't read anything.
I do think you're onto something with that. I really do. Brad, what do you see the defensive line combos being?
Oh, well,
you got a huge. You just took a linchpin out of there.
We're talking Reader for sure. Zadarius played a lot inside. Never really heard his name yesterday. Obviously it's a Pascal on the edge with Levi and Zadarius flip-flopping in there with Williams. And it's not pretty. We're going to have to outscore teams like that. If we're talking about how are we going to move forward, and
this year, yes.
Yeah. This year you're just going to have to outscore them. But as far as those are your names on defense.
But we have to have some better scheme too.
Just like Kyler Murray is no Josh Allen, either is Caleb Williams. And I'm sorry to move ahead to the next game. But I'm Caleb Williams can't do what Josh Allen did, but he's got the ability. He's not there yet, but man, this is it's the scheming. Got to put pressure on this quarterback, and if it's the blitzes that get home, then so be it. But we didn't hear the names of anybody on that D line during yesterday's game. like. It just
No.
aside from
But
when McNeil got hurt.
If we're close, and if we're kind of transitioning over to the Chicago game, I'm for that. But if a few closing statements regarding the Buffalo games, if I may.
Sure.
There were good things that happened too.
Oh yeah.
There were good things that happened too. We can say, oh, well, their secondary was picked apart. Don't talk to us about injuries. Okay. That does not matter at all. This is the NFL, and that's life. We're living it too. Big time we're living it.
Mm-hmm.
Or the San Francisco 49ers. Big time they're living
and they're
it.
6-8, but they're 6-8.
So are the Jacksonville Jaguars. Big time they're living it. So I mean, so are the New York Giants. So are the Dallas Cowboys. So I mean, let's just, we don't need to talk about injuries. They're there, here, they're there, they're everywhere. We Jared Goff, and you can, and is it a Pat Stafford stat line? Okay, it was one of those type of games that was a Matthew Stafford played in a ton of Lions games that looked very similar to that one yesterday.
Certainly did.
Played a ton of them. So, but those were Lane-esque numbers. He didn't quite ever do. He wasn't like that. We're talking about a guy that threw almost for 500 yards.
Yeah. Goff was amazing in the second.
Did he even look like it? No, it didn't. It didn't even look like it.
He just was so efficient. He was hitting. It was like he was hitting everything. And yeah, you're right. It really didn't look. I mean, I was asking like early in the second half. I'm like, I haven't heard Laporta's name very much. And all of a sudden, boom, boom, boom. I'm like, well, I guess we're hearing it now. He ended up with 111 yards receiving.
And honestly, I hate to say it, figures can lie sometimes. And Amon Ra's figures lie a little bit.
Yes.
They lie a little bit. He did not have one of his best games. He had a crucial drop, huge drop. That ball should have been caught. And then his turnover was absolutely agonizing. Those. There's a couple of plays there that we could look at the score a little bit differently potentially. We're probably talking about 14, like almost like a 28-point swing, and it's possible. So I mean, we had that going against us yesterday a little bit. But I mean, did JMO do much of anything? No, they kind of took him away, and we threw for almost 500 yards.
He only had 37. He did catch the touchdown.
Right.
He dropped that one deep ball right through his hands. But then, you know what? I was shaking my head. I'm like, you know what? It wouldn't even matter because there was a hold on the play. But it still was disheartening to see that happen. But you're right, Coach. St. Brown had a couple. It's statistically one of his best games, but yet really probably one of his worst performances in regards to making a couple key mistakes. The guy's so good. You know, I almost hate saying it, but it happened.
Drew, you do a lot of boxing on here. You do a lot of boxing, and here, and I guess in closing, and I want to go, and I want Brad to get us rolling. He's a little closer to Chicago than we are, David, geographically. So he should be the guy that leads us into that one. So, but give me 1 second here, Brad. Boxing analogy, Drew. Okay. Yesterday we got out the first couple of rounds. They were getting a lot of shots on. They got some quality shots. So they won those rounds. Yeah. They won those rounds. Yeah. And then we got hurt. And then we got hurt in those middle rounds. And we fought like hell and had a ton of 10-10 rounds. But we lost a unanimous decision by about 3-4 rounds yesterday. Mm-hmm. 3 rounds. That's fair? Would you say that's fair?
Absolutely. I think that's a great analogy.
Was it an ass whipping? It could have been, but it certainly wasn't.
No, it wasn't. It was a concise defeat. There was no doubt Buffalo was the better team. I wouldn't say they were leaps and bounds better. I mean, they certainly did a lot of things very well. I'm not trying to underscore it. We've all said Buffalo played a great game. No discredit to them. No excuses for the loss. It is what it is. But Yeah,
they had to.
They had
to play a great game, and we are on death's door. And they had to come in here and play a great game. That says something about who we still are.
Yeah, that game was in doubt up to 35 seconds left in the game, right? I mean, honestly, it was a 6-point. I get it. Yeah, it's at a lot of points in the second half, and they early in the second half they were down 3 scores. But to their credit, they came back and fought. Yeah, and you've got a puncher's chance. There's another boxing analogy. Everyone's got a puncher's chance, but the Lions certainly do. And the Bills, I would have to think, as good as they feel about winning in Detroit, they can't feel real good about giving up over 40 points in each of the last 2 games. That I wouldn't be feeling good about that.
They're not getting where they want to go if they're going to do that.
They will not beat Kansas City or Baltimore in the playoffs if they keep playing. And you know it's odd, guys. I can't believe. I mean, the Buffalo defense. Yeah, but the Buffalo defense really played well. I mean, I'm looking at the stats. They had 3 sacks on Goff. They had 10 hits. They had 2 fumbles forced and 1 recovered. They played a good defensive game. But man, when the Lions want to turn it on, there ain't no one stopping them. If the Lions, I'm concerned about, is this too much on this team on the offensive side of the ball? And it is what it is. They're going to have to. It's what they are now. But they have only 48 rushing yards as a team. That concerned me because you brought that up earlier, Brad. They struggled to run against Green Bay a little bit. They struggled against Chicago in the second half of that game. And then they really couldn't get the run game going at all against Buffalo. So I'm a little worried about that. But I'm impressed with what Goff and the Lions offense were able to do. I was looking at it's like I give that an offense a B- because in the first half they just weren't very good. They certainly weren't as good as they needed to be, and they knew they needed to be good. And that's pretty much what Goff said too. So I agree, Coach. It's a fair statement that you made, getting back to it and wrapping that up. But we're moving on now to Chicago, and the Youper's going to kick us off because, like you said, Coach, he's about an hour or 2 away from there. And what are you hearing out there, Brad? What's the scuttlebutt out there? I know you're in Packer country.
Oh. Well, I mean, they've got a circle the wagons moment here, right? Like they've fired everybody and got the outside noise is incredibly loud if anybody cares at all. So, I mean, if we want to take over Soldier Field, Detroit, come on, because you can get a ticket and it ain't that expensive. It is a buyer's market for sure. So come on over because they have no identity as a team, specifically offensively. They've got all this kind of talent. The receivers are talented. They got a talented running back. They got a young quarterback. Their offensive line is still bad. But their defense, I think,
they concern me.
They've taken us to task every game we played them these last few years. I mean, these weren't gimme games. So I do think that's one thing that, our offense can figure out and has figured out and will do it again. But, they're going to have to lean on that defense and keep Jared Goff off of the field is the only chance they have of, pulling an upset. So, these division games, these aren't get right games. This is going to be a fight. This is we're just have to bring the best we've got. And that should be enough for sure. I'm not, I think they're playing Vikings right now as we're recording this and I don't have it on. So, pardon our listeners and our viewers if they're just putting it on the Vikings and we're not talking about it. I don't know that, but how do we lose to them last year in Soldier Field, right? Like it was just a cold, snowy day and it just didn't work out. I don't remember it particularly well, but
a lot of Justin Fields.
Yeah, he ran around a lot, didn't he? So no, I mean,
as far as problem, that's a problem that Aaron Glenn does not solve. That if there's a weakness to Aaron Glenn,
quarterback,
is his ability to kind of handle the zone quarterback run. He does not defend it really worth a damn. That's something he's got to fix.
Yeah, quickly. When I look at before we go in deep into the Bears game, guys, let's talk a little bit about where the Lions are in the standings. And I'm not talking about scoreboard watching, because if the Lions take care of business the next 3 weeks, they're the number 1 seed. What really sucks is the fact that if Minnesota can overtake them in this division, they will slip to 5th seed. Can you imagine being a 13 or 14 win team and being the 5th seed in the damn playoffs? That's not and then having to either go to the Rams or Seahawks to play in the opening round. That's not a good scenario for anybody. These are absolutely must-win games. They're at Chicago. I looked at Minnesota's schedule. They're playing Chicago tonight. Let's assume they win that game. They have a tough road. They got to go to Seattle. They got to play Green Bay at home, and then they got to go to Detroit. Minnesota's got a very tough end of their schedule.
Good.
Philly doesn't. Philly goes to Washington next week. That's going to be a bitch. So we're going to be Commanders fans next week. But then they come home against Dallas and the Giants. They ain't losing those games. So Detroit has to be the 2nd seed wouldn't be the end of the world, but to go down to 5th would be a bad thing, considering everything that we talked about already ad nauseum right now with the injuries. It just is what it is. So talking about this Bears game, coach, the Lions beat the Bears 23-20 on Thanksgiving. Only 4. It'll be 4 games ago. Week 13. This is week 16. The Lions in the first half of that game were up 16-0. Statistically dominated that game, but yet didn't have an insurmountable lead. And as we learned in the second half of that game, the script flipped. The Bears kind of did what they wanted to do. They sacked Williams 5 times in that game, but he still threw 3 touchdowns and no interceptions. They weren't able to run the ball that great, but Williams was able to he was effective. He found Keenan Allen a couple of times in that game. And without a very poor clock management decision by that, not just by their head coach, but by that entire team, that no one on that roster, no one on that staff had the wherewithal to call a timeout at that point, they likely get a good chance to kick a field goal and possibly tie that game and go to overtime. I'm concerned about that. But, Coach, in that game, the Lions really struggled in the red zone on offense for some reason. How did they combat that this week?
Well, they can't ground and pound like they have not been able to do that, and that's a credit to the defensive schemes of these great defensive coaches that are in the NFL. They are devising things that are making it very, very difficult for the Detroit Lions. To that Lions, the edges are getting a little rounded down. I think we're getting a little fatigued up front. And that's not throwing shade or complaining or indicting any specific player. What they have to endure is absolute personal, physical, manual, individual human warfare at a very violent, very big, very strong level. And it just takes its toll. You get a lot of hard miles fast. And our guys aren't that young. We're talking about gentlemen that are in their late 20s or into their early mid-30s. Mm-hmm. So with the exception of one Penei Sewell, who is 24 years young. Yeah. But that's a concern moving forward, and something that I think when we do transition eventually, and I hope it's middle February. Well, it's going to be middle February, but I hope it's not until then. Mm-hmm. Are we speaking as to how we should strategize our draft moving forward? Because it's starting to feel like maybe we should start looking, even though we have some needs, pressing needs still that to fill voids in the current core. We may need to start thinking about replacing some offensive line with some very, very high caliber players. Yeah. So, that's starting to feel like that is coming a little bit. Mm-hmm. And now, to cap it all off, our most physical runner is out for the year. So we have to kind of, to a certain degree, not reinvent ourselves on offense. That would be absolutely foolish. There's no reason to do that. We are going to need someone that's going to be a hard runner, hard yards guy to replace David Montgomery's run style.
Yeah.
But what we must do is we have to be able to conserve that offensive line and be able to find balance once again in our run and our pass. We are best when we're balanced. And when we're in balanced attack, we're conserving things. We're not giving everything away or giving things up. We're not desperate. We're possessing the football more. We are possessing the clock more, which we still did a pretty good job of yesterday to a certain extent at least.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the things that are going to help out that defense in whole, because we need to be able to possess the football. We have to shorten games and make and possess the football, and that is going to be running the football and making completing high percentage throws.
How do you guys feel?
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like our screen game has been as good as I've ever witnessed as a Lions fan. I mean, how do you guys see the screen game? Do you just see it as an extension of the running game? It's just another way to run the ball? Or is
when
it
when it's effective? Yes. When it's not being defended, yes. The thing is with the screens, once they've shown that they can defend it, you're done with it. It's over. You can't really come back to it. I mean, I guess you could, but I mean, usually if they've got it snuffed out, that means they've got keys. They've got keys on the play, and they're all over screens. And when are we going to screen? Well, we're going to screen on third and long. We're going to screen on third and middle. We're going to maybe, screen on first and 10 every once in a while. There's tendencies that they're on to, and then they'll get us out of it. So, I mean, it's one of those things, Brad. You've got to diversify your screen game and have it go to running backs. You've got to have it go to tight ends sometimes. You have to have you have to put a receiver in motion and get him kind of like in a spot on the field that would be like where a running back would be sometimes. You have to do some different things. Sometimes you have to throw a hitch and then have it thrown back to the quarterback. You have to do some of the you have to do some of the fun things that they do. Sometimes you have to uncover an offensive tackle and throw a screen to a left tackle, which is essentially what we did on Sunday today on Skipper.
Got to give props to Skip. He was tackle eligible again, and he found the end zone. He found pay dirt, and that guy's a warrior.
Keep throwing up, Skip, whatever you're doing over there. We all saw that.
It's hard to get. I will not get down on this team. This team's too damn good to get down on them. Yeah, of course, there's things that didn't work out in that game that we're not happy about. But at the end of the day, this is a great team, and they still have a hell of a shot. But again, getting back to this game on defense now, okay. Now we're not facing Josh Allen here, right? This is no disrespect to Caleb Williams, but he's a rookie. He's having a nice year, but he's not Josh Allen. This offensive line, like you said, Brad, is not the Buffalo Bills offensive line. They have talent at the skill positions, but Coach, how can this defense at least be able to get some stops in this game to give Jared Goff and company a chance to really to put the dagger in this team? Because the Lions should need to be able to win this game on the offensive side of the football. But what can the defense do this week? Bring
pressure. Bring calculated pressure. We cannot go into this kind of spy man game. It's not. We don't have the talent to be able to do it any longer. We don't have the natural pass rusher to be able to do it any longer. We have to bring some pressure. And we're going to have to mix and match. And that means that there could be, a big conversion on us every once in a while as well. But we have to make Caleb Williams not look at DJ Moore and just, let him make a play. We can't just, let him just, cold commit us to death. And we can't let him run around and create his own damn passing windows. We can't allow these things to happen. We can't let him to dictate how the line of scrimmage is going to be attacked. We have to do those things and force incompletions and, force him to run for 1-2 yards, things like that. Ultimately, those are the things that we need to be able to do. We have to change our defensive game plan, obviously, from what we saw against Buffalo, because we just did not make the plays we needed to make. We just did not. We only got, I think, 2 stops total. And that's, it's just not acceptable. We are not going to be able to survive that way. I don't know what the weather is going to be like on Sunday, but that is going to be a factor for both teams. I like our chances if the weather's not good. I do. We've kind of proven that those are the things that aren't issues for the Detroit Lions anymore. But ultimately, we have to bring pressure. We have to bring pressure at Caleb Williams.
No, I agree with you 100%. And the thing is, the reason I had asked you that earlier about the game plan against the Bills was because at the times the Lions did bring pressure, they actually were kind of effective. I'm not saying they were creating turnovers or anything, because they didn't, but they did get a couple of stops in the second half, and they brought 5 or 6 guys, and that's what got it done. I was a little puzzled why they really didn't want to go to that very often. And obviously, Aaron Glenn had a reason for it, so I just would like to understand it. And I think we do, but this game, I agree with you, Coach, that it can't be a 4 or 3 man front. They've got to bring pressure on Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams is going to make mistakes under pressure. Josh Allen doesn't make many mistakes. I get that, but I'd rather Josh Allen have to throw off his back foot on the run versus doing whatever he wants to do, to your point earlier, Coach. So it just is what it is. I am curious what they're going to do with the secondary. Is it going to be Vildo, or is it going to be, like I suggested, putting Robertson out there?
Robertson.
Yeah, and bring Branch to the slot, because Brian Branch can certainly do it. I don't know, guys.
Robertson can play outside.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just wondering, is it even an option that I don't think Brian Branch is really an outside corner. I'm sure he could do it, but I think he's more suited for the slot and like you mentioned, Jamal Adams. Could Jamal Adams get more PT? I think he's probably going to be more in that. If he is, it's going to be more in that hybrid weak side linebacker almost type role. But I ask you, Brad. I haven't really been keyed on Jamal Adams, but have you seen anything that you like or dislike so far in the first couple of games?
I mean, I've seen players running away from him. I don't think he's got the speed that it's going to take to. I mean, Keenan Allen freaks me out, guys. Freaks me out.
He's tough.
I mean, that second half he had to get. I mean, they ran out of time, right? Like they were rolling. That game 2 years ago when he was with the Chargers, like just a monster.
Yep.
Right. So I think that's to your point, guys. Like Williams can't get comfortable. Like you just can't let him get confidence and the comfortability back there, because Keenan Allen's going to make plays, and you mentioned DJ Moore earlier, right? Like they do have the talent. I think you can break them, right? Like you can just break this team. They've had enough losses this year that their spirit can get busted quicker than ours, I'd like to think. But man, I'm very the Keenan Allen piece freaks me out. I just don't. I've never seen us really stop him. So let's not let Caleb get comfortable back there. And I did get the extended forecast here, Coach.
All right.
Here's what we got. We got a high of 31, a low of 25, partly cloudy, 5% chance of precipitation. So there's nothing to that. There's nothing to the weather.
That's good.
Windy in the Windy City that day?
It doesn't say anything about wind. Doesn't say anything about it.
Okay. We'll take that all day.
It's lion weather.
Yeah, you can practice
Yeah, it's
outside
like
in Allen Park.
winds from the south, 10 to 15 mile an hour. So
Pretty tame.
pretty tame.
Pretty tame.
Come on over. Come on over, Detroit.
For
Take
December
this place over.
For December 22nd, that's not a bad day outside of Chicago, that's for sure.
Right.
But yeah, you're right, Brad. Tickets can be had, and I can't go, but I know there's a lot of Lions fans that can go, and I'm sure they will be there. There'll be a lot of Honolulu blue and silver in the stands, no doubt about that. Quick question before we get into our predictions on this game, Coach. What the Bears are playing the Vikings tonight on Monday Night Football as we're recording, like Brad said. Would you? I mean, I think I'd rather see the Vikings lose this game, but I mean, that's an obvious one. But I think it would make the Bears a little bit scarier, even though, but they're eliminated, so they're just playing spoiler. That I get concerned when teams have nothing to lose. They're gonna throw the kitchen sink at you, and I'm sure Chicago would like nothing better than to knock off the Vikings and then the Lions. And any concerns there that they're maybe going to get it? Like, let's go back to a boxing analogy. If a boxer's fighting straight up, okay, there's strategy there. If a guy's swinging haymakers and just throwing like crazy, you got to weather that storm. You've got to weather that storm. Any concerns about the Bears maybe really jumping out of the gates quickly and putting the Lions on kind of like the Bills did in essence?
Whose voice is that? I mean, who's leading that charge? Who's orchestrating this? Who's scheming for this? Who is it? I mean, it's an assistant coach that did not have those duties Thanksgiving weekend. So is that happening? I mean, are we seeing that? Are they capable of it? Sure. Do I expect it? No. That would be like saying that whatever the Chicago Bears have got going on now is going to be able to kind of over voice and over motivate what Dan Campbell can do. And I don't think they can do that from a different staff's perspective in 3 weeks. So I don't think that's how they beat us. They beat us because their players are starting to show signs of being just as good as ours. And that's like that we become, in a sense, the San Francisco 49ers, who are not the team they were last year.
No.
And we aren't the team we were last year now because of the injuries, yet we have a better record than we did last year. So, I mean, the numbers, liars figure and figures lie. There's an old saying, old wise tale that says that. And there's some truth to that. There's some truth to that because figures also tell a whole lot of truths too.
Yeah.
They tell a whole lot of truths too. Let's just see how we respond. The last time we lost a football game, we won a whole bunch of them in a row afterwards. The last time we lost 2 in a row, you have to go back to the year 2022. So, law of averages says we're going to get right. We're going to get right this week. And we kind of need to because these last 2 are going to be a little trickier.
Yeah, and let's get to it, guys. Let's talk predictions in this one. And Coach, you're right. These last 2 are going to be tricky, and these last 2 are must-win games. Brad, I'm going to start with you. How are you seeing this one shaking out?
Well, when we win, it's going to be because of Dan Campbell. What he's going to put, the pressure he's going to put on this roster this week leading into Sunday is why we'll win. Chicago, they're tired of us. These guys, I don't think they're talented enough for this. What Coach just said, like Their staff should not be able to put together a game plan to defeat us. But they're tired of us. The Jack Campbell hit on Caleb when he didn't know if he was going out of bounds or if he was going to run again, or they were chattering about that after the game. The JMO and throwing that ball when the kid was trying to trip him going off. So I got a feeling we're going to get the best the players of Chicago can muster, because they're tired of losing to us. They don't have what it takes to beat us this year. And so, I do think our offense is just going to they're going to put the pedal to the metal. Like they can't, we can't have drives that end with a punt, right? Like that just can't happen. We're going to see a lot of fourth down go for it too, fellas. Like, I think coach is going to keep doing this because he's going to try to keep that ball as often as he can. So let's get above 30. Let's get to 35 and let's give up 23, 24, 35, 24.
Makes a lot of sense. Coach, how
Drew,
you
you're
see?
up.
I'm up. Okay. Well, I'm pretty much in the Upers mindset. They're 30-21 is how I have it. The Bears defense is good. That being said, I still think the Lions will put up 30 because I believe they're going to be humming. I want to see number 9 contributing more. I fully expect Saint to do his thing and Laporta to do his thing, and I think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be as much of a menace catching the ball like he was against Buffalo, and he will be able to run the football in this game. I truly believe that. I think Craig Reynolds is going to play a factor. I expect Craig Reynolds to have a pretty decent ball game in this one. I think he's going to see some probably 10 touches in this game, I would think. They got it. Then Baki, to your point earlier, Coach, he's going to get the ball a little bit. But I say 30-21, Lions win this one. I think they'll get a 10-point lead by halftime, and they'll be able to maintain that. Pretty much go toe-to-toe with them in the second half. But that's how I see it. How are you seeing it?
Well, I'm going to borrow from the both of you. I'm going to go Detroit Lions 35 and the Chicago Bears 21. I think we will pace them by 2 scores. There'll be a sequence there. I don't know if it'll be the one going in and out of the half as to where we will get this 14-point lead, but we will do this. And we will be able to shorten the game and keep the defense off the field a little bit, which means we are going to be able to run the football a little bit. That is what I am looking for. That is what I am calling for, and that is what we want to be able to see. We want to be able to be in knowing what the weather conditions are going to be. A fairly tame early winter contest. I think we're going to be able to throw the football around a little bit too, and like you said, Drew, keep the magic going kind of that way. Maybe we can get up and JMO going and they get a big play to get things spark plugged for the offense. But 35-21 is how I see it going out there, Drew and Brad.
Well, if we're all right, that's all that matters. But yeah, I think we're all on the same page on that one. Good luck, Lions. We need this one badly. We need you folks. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for liking us. Thank you for watching. If you haven't liked or subscribed to us, please do so. We have content every week. We're talking Lion football every week. And by the way, if you're not a Lions fan, tune in between February and April because we have one hell of a amount of draft coverage. Coach, you do a fantastic job with that. That's the bedrock cornerstone of this podcast is NFL draft coverage. And Uper Brad, I know you're going to be a part of that too. I know it. I can feel it. I got that feeling. But it's great coverage. But again, thank you. Check us out on Twitter, X. Check us out on Facebook. Check us out on the ESPN network on Roku. It's been on the banner the whole time here. We're on it Saturdays at 7 p.m. The ESPN network. For Uper Brad Harrison and Coach Andy Shield, my name is Drew. Thanks for watching. Take care, everybody. We'll talk to you next week. This has been the Sports Peninsula Podcast. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Follow us on YouTube so you don't miss an episode at the Sports Peninsula Podcast. You can also follow us on Twitter X. Just look for @SportsP Podcast, and follow us to keep up on sports around the great state of Michigan and beyond. You can also catch our show every Saturday night at 7 p.m. on the ESEN Network channel as part of Roku. When you want to hear all about sports in the great state of Michigan, there is only one Sports Peninsula Podcast.